Welcome into the Keep Prowling podcast. I'm back. I'm your host, DJ Beal, and back once again to talk about these Carolina Panthers that have started this season 0-6, coming fresh off the bye week. And we got to talk. We got to have a discussion. We got to talk right here on the Keep Prowling podcast, which is available on all major podcasting platforms. That's Spotify, that's Apple Podcasts, and of course YouTube. They got YouTube. They have podcasting now as well, and of course always streaming on BayEchoSports.com too. But we have to talk. We need to talk. Those vaunted words that nobody ever wants to hear. Those vaunted words that nobody. You don't want to start the conversation where we need to talk. But 0-6 post bye week, play calling duty changes. We need to talk. But let's just start here. Let's start with the Carolina Panthers, and let's start with what they look like after 6 weeks. Of course, we know we got the 0-6 start. We've had some games throughout this season where the Panthers have been in those games, but just haven't been able to finish in those games. They've had some offensive line issues. They've had injuries, especially big injuries on the defensive end. They've had problems with on the defensive end. That has been good for the most part. They've had problems on the defensive end when it comes to giving up big plays in big moments or in moments where they really can't give up that big play. It's as hard as they played all year long, as hard as they played all game long. Sometimes you have some issues with the big play late in games at a time when you just need to make that one last stop. But, of course, the elephant in the room, right? The elephant in the room is the offense. Their lack of electricity, their lack of kind of pizzazz, their lack of creativity sometimes, the lack of protection for Bryce Young. Bryce Young hasn't really felt like Bryce Young, right? So there's several reasons to think, it may be time to blow it up. Trade deadline's coming up. You can get you some more picks. You traded all your picks to get Bryce Young. It feels like, at least all your primary picks to get Bryce Young, and it could be time to blow it up. But here I go again, being the voice of reason again, right? Here I go, being the voice of reason again to say, maybe they shouldn't blow it up. But first, let's jump into these first 6 weeks. Of course, Bryce Young leading the way in the passing game as he should, playing 5 of the 6 games that they've played throughout the season. 967 yards, a 63% completion percentage, 6 TDs, 4 INTs. So not as electrifying as you would like for it to be. Miles Sanders leading the way at least in carries, but it's Chuba Hubbard leading the way in yards when it comes to the running game. A little bit of a surprise there for Chuba Hubbard. You expected Miles Sanders to come, bursting onto the scene after the year he had last year with Philadelphia, going to the Super Bowl and all that, being, a top rusher in the league, and the Panthers grabbing a top rusher in the league. You expected some big things. No surprise here. Adam Thielen, the leading receiver for the Carolina Panthers. Terrace Marshall is another guy who's played very well. Jonathan Mingo. It's kind of been, and we've seen Terrace Marshall play decently. We've seen Jonathan Mingo play decently. But interestingly enough, when you look at the receiving core for this team, it's Adam Thielen and nobody else, right? It's Adam Thielen and nobody else because, Adam Thielen has 500 yards. He's playing, I think, out of his mind, it feels like. I think he's playing better than people even really expected him to. But after that, there's just been nothing there. DJ Chark, of course, has been dealing with injuries, so he's been limited in his play. He's been limited in his snaps. But everybody else has had, it feels like at least, their fair shot to make an impact. And, hopefully with play calling duty changing too, with Coach Brown taking over the play calling duties, it might help a little bit to get, some of those drive starting type plays that we talk about so much defensively. Honestly, with the exception of maybe the Dolphins game, and that's kind of to be expected when you play against the Dolphins, I feel like defensively this team has been excellent. C.J. Henderson leading the way in tackles, Brian Burns leading the way in sacks. I don't know who's leading the way in interceptions right off. Sam Franklin leading the way in interceptions. A lot of people have one for the most part. That so a lot of people getting in on the action when it comes to turning people over. But it's nice to see. It's nice to see this defense kind of pick up where they left off. It's going to be the offense that's going to have a little bit more of the pressure on them, especially post-bye week. An extra week to prepare, an extra week to think about this other rookie quarterback from the draft class coming in this week with C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans. There's going to be a lot to think about, and I think, I talked about it last week when Lawrence was on the show. This is a get-right stretch, right? This is a get-right stretch. If you're looking at 3-6 after the bye week, you're looking at 3-6 as opposed to 0-9, as opposed to 2-8. Like if you're looking at 3-6, I think I had my math wrong, but you know what I'm saying. Like if you're looking at 3-6 as opposed to any other variation of that number, you're feeling way better than you are feeling right now. And 3-6 still feels like an uphill climb to get to 3-6, but also to improve from 3-6 and to win the division at 3-6. But if you think about it, 3-6, the division is still in reach because you don't have divisional games in these next 3 games. You have some games you need to win. You have some games that are winnable, but you don't necessarily have games. You don't have games that are division games that are going to affect, win or loss going to affect the division race per se. It will in the overall standings, which also is important for the division too. But we'll see how it goes when it comes down to the division, because that's later on in the season. It's later on in the season when you have the divisional games that you got to kind of find your way and try to scratch and claw your way back up, because the trade deadline is upon us, right? It's a week away or so, something like that, a week away, less than a week away probably at this point. And with the trade deadline being right here, it begs the question, what should the Panthers do, right? Because there is a lot of people out there that say, blow it up, continue to try to improve, right? And blowing up means trading Jeremy Chin for picks, trading Dante Jackson for picks, trading Brian Burns for picks, which we don't want to talk about, trading one of these receivers that you have for picks potentially, right? That means not to say you're, just because you blow it up, that doesn't mean you're folding on the season, but you're making it much more difficult than maybe it would be with the core you have and adding a piece or two here. So the potential of blowing it up could be there, but I'm gonna be on the other side, right? I'm gonna be on the other side, and I'm gonna say, why don't you add another piece? Why don't you add another piece or two, right? I think defensively you're feeling pretty good. I've talked about this before, like Brian Burns, I don't think you can trade him. I think you have to figure it out. You have to figure out how can you sign Brian Burns, simply because elite pass rushers do not grow on trees, right? Elite pass rushers are like money. They don't grow on trees. Elite pass rushers they're not like a dime a dozen. Like, you ain't going to find an elite pass rusher just right off the bat. You're not gonna find it, right? Finding an elite pass rusher is so hard to do in this league, especially when you let one walk. When you let a really good or elite pass rusher walk, finding that next guy is hard, especially when you don't have a first-round pick to begin with, too. Like, you might could get a first-round pick for Brian Burns, and that might be the only silver lining when it comes to trading Brian Burns. But I wouldn't do it, right? I personally wouldn't do it. I think when I'm looking at the trade deadline, right? When I'm looking at the trade deadline and I look at the guys that are out there, right? I look at for the Carolina Panthers, I think about I got 3 guys, right? I got 3 guys that you could potentially go after that could be needle movers, right? Like, if the off-season guys weren't necessarily needle movers, I got 3 guys you could go after, 3 of them things. 3 guys you could go after that could be needle movers. Or should I say 3? Which one? I mean, however y'all do it. 3 guys that could potentially be needle movers. I think first things first, I don't want to go with the flashy pick first. No, let's go with the flashy pick first. Hollywood Brown, right? We talked about it last week with Lawrence. Hollywood Brown is going to give you a speed element that you simply do not have, and a speed element that a lot of teams simply do not have, unless you're Miami when you have 3 speed elements that you have. But Hollywood Brown can get open. He can make the catches. He's going to make the plays. And he's also a guy who is going to give you that speed element that you simply don't have. You can take a little bit of pressure off of Adam Thielen. You can still use Adam Thielen the way you do, but Hollywood's going to give you some opportunities. He's a former 1,000-yard receiver. He's going to give you opportunities that I think right now you simply don't have. He's going to give you that chance to get it to a guy in space, get some yards after catch, and make things a little bit easier for Bryce Young. Now, on the defensive end, I would say I would go corner, right? I would go corner, and I don't even know. That's the thing about it. I don't even know. I'm going to say a couple of guys because, you have like a Kyer Elam from Buffalo. You got a Christian Fulton from the Titans who's a young guy, Dory Jackson. If you want a little more of a veteran guy from the Giants. I think, any three of those guys, I think if I had to pick one, I might pick Fulton, right? I think you got youth on your side when it comes to Fulton. I think it's going to be Fulton or Dory Jackson on that one, right? I think it's going to be Fulton or Dory Jackson because with a Dory Jackson, you're going to get that veteran leadership, right? You're going to get that guy who's been there and done that. I think with Fulton, you get a little bit more youth. You may get a little more spry chicken type aspect of things. He's going to be a little more spry. You're going to be, ready to talk, ready to kind of change the tone of the defense a little bit possibly. But I think corner could be a good one too. I think out of those positions, I think corner could be a good one too because corner is going to give you that's the issue with the Panthers so far throughout this season has been injuries in the secondary. Like J.C. Jackson cannot stay healthy. Dante Jackson hasn't really been extremely healthy, and I think sometimes we feel like he hasn't really been reliable, right? So to grab another guy to take some pressure off of some guys, right? Dante Jackson's on this list that I'm looking at right now of potential guys you could trade to get potential picks, but I think the secondary has been it's felt like it's had a little bit of unrest because of the injuries, right? You've seen some big injuries when it comes to the defensive end, and that's why I don't think you trade Brian Burns unless you're just, if you're blowing everything up, then I guess. But I mean, even still, like, even if you're blowing everything up, just because you blow everything up for this year does not mean you have to be bad next year. So, it's just one of those things. And my last one that I want to go with, this one might be a surprise. This guy might not even be on the trade block, to be honest. But I know the Ravens love picks, and this is a guy who is kind of that Swiss Army knife for the Ravens, but he's played well in a lot of different positions. He's played well at right tackle. He's played well at guard. He's had to play left tackle from time to time and has tried to hold his own a little bit too. He's probably better suited because he's a little undersized to be more of a guard, but I'm going to say Patrick Mekari, right? I'm going to say Patrick Mekari because Patrick Mekari can play – I don't know if he can play all five positions per se, but like he's almost forced to in Baltimore because Baltimore likes to, line people up out of position, including linemen, as crazy as that sounds. But the thing about Patrick Mekari is you can put him in a couple of different positions. You can put him you can put him in several different areas to kind of fix this O-line problem, or at least Band-Aid this O-line problem for the time being, because we've seen that Bryce Young with time is a dangerous man. It's Bryce Young with no time. It's when he gets, he gets to pressing. He starts to rush a little bit. He starts to try to, fit a ball in that may not be there, right? Like that's when mistakes happen. Pressure, I think the biggest thing in the NFL to some of the, even some of the greats, you think about Tom Brady didn't like pressure in his face either, right? He didn't like pressure in his face either. So even great quarterbacks don't like pressure. Peyton Manning didn't like pressure either. You know what I'm saying? Like, pressure is an issue for the greatest of quarterbacks. So that's why I'm saying, like, for me, I think you go, try to shore up your offensive line. But I get it. Offensive line is tough, especially in the middle of the season, because you don't have the offseason to build that cohesion. Offensive line is tough midseason because you got to build chemistry immediately for a unit of 5 guys who work together every single play, right? Who work together and communicate every single play. So that could be something. But he's a guy who isn't necessarily a starter in the league. but he has to play so many different positions that he can kind of fill in a little bit. And I mean, I think he's got starter potential possibly, but you know. I think that's my and I think I cheated a little bit. That's my three positions, I guess I should say, right? My three positions uh, of need for the Panthers. I feel like that they could go after at the trade deadline. Real quick, let's talk about this Houston Texans Carolina Panthers matchup coming up soon in Carolina. C.J. Stroud having to travel. Panthers coming off the bye week. That's big too. I think Texans are coming off their bye week too. That's big too. Like, both teams well rested. It's a chance to reset. This week in general is a chance to reset. The bye week is a chance to reset. And I feel like the Ravens. I feel like the Panthers, I should say. I feel like, we're talking about Patrick McCarr, I got the Ravens on my mind. But I feel like the Panthers should be able to reset and maybe show some new things. With Thomas Brown taking over the play calling too, you expect to see some different things than what you saw early on in the season with Frank Reich calling plays. So that's a big deal too. I think to see what that looks like, to see what Coach Brown can do calling plays as opposed to Frank Reich calling plays. That'll be interesting to see. Like, how did they expand the amount of time and add to the time that Bryce Young has in the pocket? Because Bryce Young, Bryce Young with time is dangerous, but it's a danger for Bryce Young to not have time. So I think to win this game, the defense is going to have to find a way to turn over C.J. Stroud. I know he doesn't turn the ball over very often. I know he is very efficient. I know he gets the ball downfield. He is not afraid to make a mistake. He is not afraid to sling the ball around. But this defense is going to have to get after him somehow, some way, whether it be in the pass rush game, whether it be, making some good plays on the ball if you're the secondary. That combination of the two, the pressure along with good secondary play is going to be big for the second and third level. Good play from them is going to be big for the Carolina Panthers this week. I think offensively, you got to find something, right? Find something. You had an extra week to look and see what's worked, what hasn't. Figure out, go after what's worked. And I know it's been a heavy dose of Adam Thielen, and I think that's a big deal. But I think at the same time, you have to find some drive starters. You have to find some plays that make life a little bit easier for Bryce Young, right? You have to find some plays that's going to make life just a little bit easier for Bryce Young. Meaning, it could just be simplifying the offense down a little bit. Cam Newton said it, on his show. He said, sometimes we make football too complicated when really it ain't about being the most complicated, right? It's more so about, being creative, sometimes being simple, and letting Bryce do what Bryce Young can do. So I think that's a big thing too, like simplify the offense and, get Bryce into a rhythm. Get Bryce into a rhythm early and often. So, I mean, I think the Panthers, I talked about it before. I feel like this is a get-right stretch for the Panthers. The Panthers can get right in this stretch. A lot of people, I know, we want to throw in the towel. We done. We said it's we good. I get it. Like, I understand. I know the frustration. I completely get it. But I don't think it's time to blow it up. I think you still a couple of pieces away, and I talked about it before, maybe even a year away. So maybe you think about blowing it up for that sense, right? But when I say blow it up, you don't have to go full rebuild. You have talented guys on this team, and I think you have talented coaches on this team. So the offense is the biggest issue. Like let's just be honest about things. The offense is the biggest issue. Not your lack of picks next offseason, I don't think, and not your not your defense, right? Your defense is not the issue. The lack of offense right now is the issue, and not the lack of picks for next offseason. You're missing one or two guys. I think if you get Hollywood Brown, you change that dynamic. I think if you could potentially shore up your secondary a little bit, you change that dynamic a little bit. So we'll see. we'll see what they do. We'll see how it goes. What do you guys think? Let me know at home what you guys think about this game, man. Can you got the battle of the potential number one overall picks. If we take it back to last April. So what do you guys think? Who wins? C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Houston Texans, Carolina Panthers. Who gets the job done? Let me know. Let's pick these games real quick and let's get out of here. Okay, so Thursday night football. One that Panthers fans will be watching in the Buccaneers at the Bills. I'm gonna go Tampa Bay. I know it sounds crazy. I know it does. I know it sounds crazy, but it seems like Buffalo is kind of coming back down to earth. It seems like they might be in line to make a move at the trade deadline, possibly. It makes you wonder too, like what could Gabe Davis go for over there? Because if you're a Panthers fan and you're looking for somebody who's made made some, and I hate to say made a couple plays in the league because that sounds bad, but made some plays in the league, maybe you go for a Gabe Davis. But I still think I would like the speed factor of Hollywood more. But I think the Buccaneers get this win. I think the Buccaneers win. I think they turn over Josh Allen, and I think the Buccaneers are really talented on offense. So I think they get the job done. Of course, we pick the Panthers over the Texans. The LA Rams at the Dallas Cowboys. This one's tough, but I think the Rams win this game. I think the Cowboys are really good. I really do. I think the Cowboys are an extremely good team. When it comes to the fact that they're 4-2, they played well. Their losses have been bad, but they played well for the most part. But I think the Rams, for whatever reason, got the edge on this. I think the Rams are, just a little bit away from where they kind of want to be, or at least their expectations this season. So I think the Rams kind of get themselves back up on this one. The Vikings at the Packers. I'm gonna go with the Vikings. I think the Vikings, once again, another one of those teams that is really talented. The Vikings are so talented, but they just for some reason can't get out of their own way. But I think they're a better team than the Packers, so I'm going with that. We got Derek Carr versus Gardner Minshew. The Saints at the Colts. I'm gonna go with the. This one's tough. I don't think the Saints are that good. I still don't. I'm still gonna say that. I'm gonna fall on that sword. I might die on that sword, but I don't think the Saints are that good. I think they should be better than they are. I just don't think they lived up to expectations. I think the Colts win this game. Patriots at the Dolphins. Ain't this one of those weird Patriot games that they would come out and win? Like they played well against the freaking Bills and somehow won that game. This is one of those games where the Patriots will for some reason win this game. But I'm gonna go with the Dolphins. I'm going safe pick. All right, I'm going safe pick. Battle of the New York teams. You got the Jets at the Giants. Which I mean, who's truly the away team on that one? Is the real question. But that one's tough. That one is tough. The Jets at the Giants. The Jets at the Giants. I think this is me. This is my thought. I think if the Giants continue to play with Tyrod Taylor, I think the Giants will continue to be good. I like Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is my guy, but Tyrod Taylor's outplaying him right now. So if you can continue to be outplayed by your backup quarterback and he's playing well, I think you stick with it. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go Giants with Tyrod Taylor. The Jaguars at the Steelers. I think the Jaguars get this. I think this is a get right game for the Jaguars. I don't think the Jaguars have looked good. I think the Jaguars have struggled. I think they've kind of found a way to win. Kind of like I was hoping the Panthers would win throughout the season by hook or by crook. They found a way to win, and the Steelers. I mean, this is a darn bank robbery game right here because the Steelers been doing the same thing. They've been just finding ways to win somehow, some way, with their defense leading the way. It don't matter. So I think I'm gonna go Jacksonville. I think this should be a good game though. It should be a good game. The Steelers are not, for some crazy reason, are not going anywhere. It don't matter who they got. If Mike Tomlin is at the helm, they gonna be competitive. It really don't matter. Falcons at the Titans. I think the Titans win this game. The Falcons, show some glimpses here and there, but I think the Titans can find a way to win this game too, right? Like the Titans, I don't think they're a great team by any means, but I think they can find a way to win. The Eagles at the Commanders. Watch the Commanders come out and sneak a win on this one. I got a lot of upsets this week, as you can see. I think the Commanders are at a weird spot, right? Because for some reason, I don't think they're playing well. I don't think they're world beaters by any means, but I don't think the Eagles are either. I think the Eagles kind of like a lot of teams in the league lately has felt like have just been finding ways to win. It's not that they look dominant. It's not that they looked unbeatable. They just found ways to win. I think that comes back to bite them against the Commanders in the division to make this division race a little bit more interesting. The Browns at the Seahawks. Who knows if Deshaun Watson is playing? But once again, I mean, you're going to hear this a lot, but the Browns are finding ways to win too. Like, no Deshaun Watson doesn't even matter, right? With Deshaun Watson, they win too. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, somehow they're finding ways to compete in games and win. But I think the Seahawks get the win on this one. I really do. Ravens at the Cardinals. I think the Ravens, after the offensive onslaught they put on last week against the Detroit Lions, a top team in the NFC, going up against the Cardinals, it could be a potential trap game for them, but I think the Ravens get the win. I think that the offensive fireworks continue, and it might be a little Hollywood Brown showing off party for Panthers fans, so they can maybe go after him. Another guy I didn't talk about that would be an interesting trade target. I know him and Steve Smith got a little bit of beef with Jerry Jeudy and Steve Smith, but Jerry Jeudy could possibly be a guy who gives you speed. He gives you a guy who can get open, and he just hasn't been in a good offense. It's felt like with Denver, I think he got the short end of the stick on that one, but I don't think it's time to give up on him just yet. But Steve Smith said he was just a guy, and I think that can steer some people clear of him, but we'll see. The Chiefs at the Broncos. The Chiefs get the win here. The Broncos are just not good. I know they looked a little better last week, but they're just not good. They I don't know what it is. I can't figure it out. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle I'm willing to solve, but don't got the pieces to solve it. So the Chiefs get the win on this one. The Bengals at the 49ers. I think the 49ers, they've lost their last two. They haven't really looked good in their last two. So I think the 49ers find their way back on this one. I think the 49ers are another really talented team. I think they're really well coached. And I think it's just a tough matchup. I mean, the 49ers are a tough matchup for anybody, especially if they're actually playing. They're actually playing their game. So I think the 49ers get this win. I think this should be a good game, though. Like, honestly, I don't know if it's America's Game of the Week or if they even still do that, but, it should be. The Bears at the Chargers, Sunday Night Football in L.A. The oddly enough 2-4 Chargers versus the 2-5 Bears. If anybody... I mean, it's funny because if anybody would have asked, oh, yeah, what do you think how do you think the Chargers and the Bears would stack up before the season started, I would have said, oh, yeah, I think they'll be pretty similar. 2-4 and 2-5 was not what I was expecting, but I guess they're still pretty similar. Something about this game, Justin Fields will probably be back in this game. Something about this game gives Bears upset to me. I don't know what it is. It's just something about this game that's giving Bears upset the Chargers. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go Bears upset on this one. And then Monday Night Football, the Raiders at the Lions. I think the Lions get right in this game. I really do. I think the Lions get right in this game. I think they had a tough showing last week against the Ravens, but they ran into a really, really good defense. So I think they're gonna get right in this game. I think the Lions get the win. But back to it one more time. Who do you think is going to win with the Panthers and the Houston Texans? Of course, Houston coming to Carolina. It's going to be busy. If you're around the Charlotte area, you might want to just stay off the streets because it's going to be a little busy, okay? But definitely hope you guys enjoyed the show. As always, the Keep Prowling podcast is on all major podcasting platforms and also on BackWithSports.com as well. So be sure to check the podcast out. Like the podcast, comment below. I want to hear from you. I always want to hear from you. I want to know what you thinking about the Carolina Panthers and the rest of the league too. If you got another dog in the fight, that's fine. Throw them in there. Throw them in there. I want to hear from you guys. I want to connect with you also. Be sure to connect with me as well. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Keep Prowling podcast. I definitely thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time. If you like this video, maybe check out the Delano Little Show and the 704 High School Highlight. Links are to the side.